Perfect stuff. Right. Okay. So, good evening, everyone. Let me quickly share my screen again and just double check that that's come up. Right. Can everyone see everything? Amazing. Perfect. And I'm assuming that you can all hear me by the nods of heads for answering that question that I've just asked. So we've got through the awkwardness of me not being on mute to start with, which would be highly embarrassing for what we're about to talk about. So thank you very much for the introduction before. By way perhaps of a little bit about me, so I've been known to dabble in Microsoft and 365 for a few years now. Over the last kind of 6 years or so, I've built my safety career starting as SHE advisor at a food manufacturing site after actually being assistant health and safety manager in a hotel down in London. Worked my way up from basically SHE advisor, SHE manager, group health and safety manager, and then most recently to head of safety in Stagecoach, where I've then finished at Stagecoach and now started as a health and safety consultant, whilst also starting my own business on the side, Simple Foundry, which is specifically focused on helping health and safety professionals, business owners, functional directors, and consultants solve health and safety challenges using Microsoft. Now, and I know that we kind of said at the start, there's a lot of money that can be put into health and safety software that can literally just cause a lot of challenges as part of what people try and achieve through their health and safety management systems. I've been a massive fan and advocate of using Microsoft to try and solve those challenges and to try and make something that's just quicker, cheaper, easier, and more effective for every single health and safety professional across the world. And I'm hoping that today I can try and distill all of those 6 years worth of experiences together in a single hour. Here we go. Okay. So by way of a little bit about kind of Simple Foundry, who are we? So as I say, we've been established since 2023, pretty much a few months ago. UK based, so I'm in Leeds at the moment. Struggling with a frog in my throat, but based smack in the middle of the country. So I'm not sure if any of you have suffered today from the wind and the rain, but certainly I hope it's better than it has been in not so sunny Yorkshire today. Within the team itself, it's currently just me. If you've happened to come across our website as well, you'll also see that there is another team member who's roughly about a foot tall, very furry, and is about 2 years old. And he is my little dog, Hamish, who's a tiny sprocker that I love to pieces, but always manages to come in at the worst times of Teams calls. So if you happen to see the door open behind me and suddenly some paws appear at the bottom of the screen, that'll be my wonderful office mascot, Hamish, that's just jumping in. So as I say, what do we do? Well, simply put, we use Microsoft to make your life simpler, easier, and better. Really focused on simplifying, digitizing, and automating what you do using Microsoft. Now, pretty much I'm confident that everyone in this room has got a paper copy or a paper system or a digital process that kind of works okay, but potentially could be better. And that's exactly where we come in. That's exactly the type of stuff that we want to jump in with and help you finesse, help you perfect, and make sure that it works not only for you, but for your management, and most importantly, for the frontline staff. So yes, we've got consultants, yes, we've got kind of courses, but that's not really what I'm here to talk about today. What I'm here to talk about today is what everything means for you. So we've got a wonderful cross section of people that I've seen kind of in the email list, in the attendee list that's coming across. And if I kind of segment you all today without wanting to put you kind of into a specific box, we've got a mixture of health and safety professionals, functional directors and business owners, and then health and safety consultants. Now, I'm not going to kind of go through verbatim the benefits that you can get from using Microsoft. I'm sure that all of you have used some form of software before. You might have even dabbled with some of the bits that we're starting to talk about and what we're going to cover. But fundamentally, what I will say is that if you are a health and safety consultant, the opportunity that's in front of you for helping your clients achieve some fantastic outcomes without them having to sign up to some significant multi-year contract with some dedicated software, it's immense. I was saying before we started this session that I was speaking with a prospective client recently, and they've signed up to a 5-year deal with a major health and safety software provider, and it's cost them £150,000 over 5 years. They've got 350 staff and 3 sites. And I thought, oh my God, that's just ridiculous. That's I cannot believe how much that costs. And he said the worst part about it is that for the first year and a half of that 5-year contract, they've not really engaged with it because they're just not ready. The digital maturity isn't there. And they kind of wish that they'd actually just had something that was almost like a halfway house from not having anything through to having that bit of third-party software that they could use at the same time to help build that digital literacy, help get their staff engaging with the processes, the patterns, and what they needed to achieve. And Microsoft is potentially that avenue. It is that opportunity. So hopefully what we go through today will actually give you some worked examples for how you can not only do what I'm about to show you, but also how you can potentially help your clients understand what's best for them. And if you are in the position of being just a health and safety professional or a functional director or a business owner, how you too can use Microsoft without having to worry about that third-party software piece. So what we're going to do. Now, I appreciate a few of you are on your phones to start with, and this might be kind of useful for you. But if you've got a phone handy, scan that QR code that's on that screen at the moment, and it's going to bring you to a dedicated health and safety form. Now, I appreciate that all of you might have your phones on you, so if you bear with me 1 second, I'll give you 1 sec, guys, just to quickly scan that, and then just jump into this. Right, there we go. So for those of you who don't have a phone handy, if you just want to fill in that form there that I've just put into the chat. So if you open up the chat, that should be just at the top, you'll see kind of chat, Q&A, people, raise your hand, react, click on the chat, it'll open the bit and you can click into that form and then start to fill it in. Now, there are some example bits that I've filled in as part of this, so it'll sort of get us going a little bit. But if you wouldn't mind filling that in, that'd be terrific. And while you're doing that, I'll tell you what we're going to go through. So we're going to use this Microsoft form as the basis of a worked example. And I'll talk you all through how we can use that form, how it's built, how it can be accessed. We'll talk through then how it's automated in terms of the responses and what comes out from it. We'll work through an email and what that looks like in a custom email that you should receive if you pop an email address in at the very beginning to say, yes, please communicate with me. You'll get a custom personalized email from that. And then we'll have a look to see where that form content goes. So in the meantime, while you're filling that in, because you've now got a link both QR code and in the form, what I'm going to do is bring up my screen and we'll see if any of these submissions change live, hopefully, in a bit of a presentation of that same form as well. So I know that we've had kind of 23 responses that have been submitted already. We'll see kind of if this updates while it's going through. And if it doesn't, not to worry, we've got a little bit of something else that I'll show you around this. So Microsoft Forms is almost kind of the basis of where we can start to automate things. Now, yes, it's a form, but actually we can start to use Microsoft Forms for a bunch of different things. You've got an example here where we can use it for a hazard report, but we can also use Microsoft Forms for things like accident reports, pre-start checks, vehicle inspections, fire door checks, audits of different areas, feedback forms. If you're doing any training, for example, literally get the feedback from people that are doing that training at the end using a Microsoft form. The sky's the limit. If you have something that's written down on paper that you think, actually, we can put this in a digital form, perfect, let's go for it. Now, I don't know if any of you eagle-eyed viewers had just seen there, but we've just seen some more of these responses coming in. So I've seen it go from 24, 25. As people are starting to click submit, what we can also do on 26. So we're seeing more hazards coming through at this point. So if you imagine that we've got a form in an interactive training session as well, you can present the findings of the forms live while you're going through. And we haven't even got out of a form at this point. We've not done anything with the form, just showing the responses that are coming through as they're actively being there. Now, as part of this as well, we're just looking at one particular question. I'm not going to kind of flip through them because there might be some personal information in there that could otherwise come up. But what I will say is that the responses that come through can be word clouds, they can be bar charts, you can change them into tree maps, you name it, dependent on what outcomes you want to have as part of this. And now I can also see that there's a few emails that are coming through from people. I've seen that there's a particular event here called FHVBB. I like it, very nice. I don't know who that was, but that's really good. Enjoying that one. So do please feel free to keep filling this in while we're speaking and we'll kind of talk it through. So as I was saying, we've got a form to start with, and all we've done at this point is created the form, put a link out, changed it as a QR code, and we've shown the responses that are coming through live. I mean, blimey, the opportunities that have presented themselves straight away there from just the form is fantastic, absolutely fantastic. But what I'm really keen to kind of do is just explore a little bit more about the form itself. So if I were to go back onto my Microsoft Forms sort of homepage here for a second, these are all the different forms that I've kind of just recently used. So if I click into my health and safety form, this is literally just kind of how it's built. Without wanting to sort of get people to raise their hands using the raise button, for those of you with the cameras on, have you kind of used Microsoft Forms before, by any chance? There's a small show of hands. Cool, nodding heads, right, amazing, perfect. So some of you might be familiar with some of these bits already, which is really good. When you're building a form itself, you can set it up however you want. This one's quite a simple form in the sense that everything's just kind of split out into specific sections. I've got a mixture of required questions and not required questions. Some of them have got a particular date format. Some of them are asking particular kind of subtitles within it. You would have seen when it came down to the what 3 words bit that you can actually put pictures in. But if you wanted to, what you can also do is add videos to it as well. So this can be really useful if, for example, you've got, let's say, a certain demographic of staff that would really engage with more of like a personal approach to a form. Or it could be that at the top of that form, you put a video instruction on how they use it. Again, the opportunities are endless as part of this. Robert, I've seen you put the what 3 words link in there. I'm going to ask you to hold the thought on what 3 words as well, because it's honestly, it's a fantastic bit of kit. In terms of being able to make these your own, these forms, again, the style that you can attach to them is unique to you. So in this case, you'll see that I've got kind of just a bit of a picture that I've uploaded in the background, and then a particular hex key here for a color that's linked to my own branding in Simple Foundry. You can choose whatever branding you want behind it. So you can have your own personal kind of background in it. You can have your own color scheme. So Sam, for example, you could do this specifically for orchard safety, have that wonderful green color behind it as well. You can actually also at the top, oh, apologies. If I go back up to the top, I'll tell you what it's doing a question here. If you right click on it as well, you can actually change the color of all of the particular questions, make things bold, underline them, put bullet points in. Again, the opportunities are there for you. So the personalization element behind forms is terrific. For those of you who might not have seen it as well, you can actually also create custom thank you messages, allow people to save their forms, and do a couple of other bits and pieces in the back of it as well. Now, at the moment, I've got this so that anyone can respond to a form, but you can also actually limit it to people in your organization, or even just people that have got specific email addresses that you actually will provide to it. So again, if you just wanted to have a certain subset of your staff responding to this form and were worried about people using a QR code to get it and otherwise use it, you can set all of that literally within the Microsoft form itself. It's terrific, really, really good. Okay, so we've gone through forms. You'll have seen that I put the QR code out, which is literally in sharing the response, click on the QR code and it's automatically generated. So from a form point of view, that's Microsoft Forms. I love it. I really do. Over the years, I've actually built a lot of health and safety management system elements just using Microsoft Forms. So you'd have seen, for example, at the start, a couple of examples of things that I've done before now. So health and safety events, feedback forms, accident notifications, DSE, ladder inspection templates. There's a lot more, but those are just a couple of the recent ones that I've actually been working on. So any form that you have, you can start to use in a lot more detail. But what about the form responses themselves? What about actually anything that's just come up from that? Okay, well, let's check it out. We've got our form, we've filled in the information, but what can we do with it? This is where something called Power Automate comes into play. Now, for those of you who've used Microsoft Forms before, have you used Power Automate before? Again, quick show of hands if you have. No. Okay. This is magic. 100% magic. Absolutely, it's incredible. Absolutely incredible. If you have something that you would like to achieve as a process, chances are is that you can do this through Power Automate. So what I've done as part of this form was set up a simple flow. Now, this is literally a step-by-step instruction that literally works a bit like Lego combined with a flow chart. The clue's almost in the name, flow chart. And in this case, what I've asked it to do is do a couple of different pieces. I've asked it to take the form, and when someone fills in that form, I want it to add the information into an Excel table. I want it to add it into a Microsoft list. And I want it to do a couple of things with Microsoft Planner. So let's start with a simple one. Everyone's pretty much used to Excel. However much kind of everyone says Excel isn't the backbone of business, Excel isn't a database, everyone uses Excel. Big multinational companies still use Excel. So it makes sense to make sure that whatever we have from a form, it can work with Excel. And we can do that actually quite easily. So if I flick to this, we will see that actually at the bottom of here on 5:30, 6 o'clock, 4:52, 5:31. There we go. FHVBB. You'll notice that's the one that I set out before. All automatically added to an Excel worksheet. Now you've seen me, you've literally seen me at the same time. You've seen that I can't have possibly have added this information while we've been talking because it's been done automatically. And because it's in Excel, as soon as it's in Excel, we can start to do everything that we would normally do in an Excel sheet. So if you, for example, have got a statistics kind of function here, perfect. Make yourself some nice, wonderful visualizations, link it up with pivot tables. And if I just quickly click refresh, you'll see that bar chart's now moved. And we've had a load of things that have just come up from today, because those are the forms that have just come through between the time that I tested this at 5:30 and the time that we've just clicked refresh now. So if you were saying, right, okay, I need to get a very quick, up-to-date weekly report out on what events have happened in my workplace, you literally just set up one form, one flow, click one button that's refresh, and you've got it there. That's all your visual processes for reporting done. And it's taken a couple of minutes. In fact, it's taken probably longer for people to fill in a form than it's taken me to literally just update that particular document there. So again, the opportunities that we have with Excel are huge, but we're only getting started. What about any of the other things that I've talked about here? Well, let's start with the list. So from a Microsoft list point of view, a list is basically like an Excel version of a table online, but it's just a dedicated list itself. Now, you can use lists for a couple of different pieces, but let's say for whatever reason you didn't want it to go in Excel, but you wanted something on SharePoint that people could access. A list is the absolute thing for you. Now, again, you'll see that the last one on here was 5:32, where I'd actually written in its test form and long live the risk. That is not my position as a safety professional. I definitely do not think long live the risk as part of that. But let's quickly update this for a second. Let's scroll down and we'll see, there we go. We knew that the bottom of it before was absolutely naff all long live the risk, but after a quick refresh, again, we've got all of these at the bottom as part of that. And because of the way that I've set this up, Robert, you'd mentioned about what 3 words behind this as well. I'm not going to click on this because it will bring up specific personal information. But if you were to click on that particular bit there, you'd be able to click on that link and it would show you where that particular event had happened. I'm going to say that seems a little bit complicated, Pete. Can't we make it simpler? We can. And that's where Microsoft Planner comes in. So have any of you ever heard of Microsoft Planner before, by any chance? If you're nodding heads, right, amazing. So Microsoft Planner, think about it as effectively like an aggregated action tracker. So at the moment, all I've got are actions coming in from this particular kind of process into Microsoft Planner. So if I click on Planner here for a second, this is effectively where all of my actions had come up before. So again, if I just quickly refresh that, and we'll see that all of the actions that have come from any of the form points that have been filled in are here. So I'm just going to click on this top one that doesn't have any personal information in and say, right, okay, what's happened? What's the action here? Unacceptable electrical portable near miss. Not lots happened. The action is a pizza party. Whoever's done that, fantastic. Pizza parties, as we all know, the best thing for a safety professional to deliver. Works every time. Cracking action. Really good. Really good. But if we click on the event location, we can see straight away where it was. So if you imagine you're a safety professional and you've got all of your sites, all your teams, all your locations, adding actions into this, you can get all of your actions very simply adding to a single planner location. So you can see at an oversight what's happening, who's it assigned to, when did it start, when's it due, what's it for, is it started, and what's the priority. And because you can actually put attachments into this and link up all of those question information that you've had in the form, you can see instantly, using what 3 words, where it's happened, down to a 3-meter squared radius. Now, again, that can be really useful, for example, if you're working with construction clients, if you're working with, for example, big locations, or if you're, for example, you're trying to find where's a specific event happening in my site. Well, let's say that you wanted to work out a standard latitude and longitude and then work out ground floor, first floor, second floor. There's nothing that stops you having another question in your form saying, okay, if that's a location, is it on the first floor, second floor, third floor, whatever it's going to be? And just put that in the details. Just link it together. That's it. So again, the opportunities that come up from being able to use Microsoft Lists, Microsoft Planner is fantastic. It really is. But if that's the aggregated one, can we do anything with personal action tracking? Yes, you can. So you'll see on here that everything's currently assigned to me. Now, the reason being is that I'm the only person with an email account in my organization. Don't get me wrong, I mentioned about Hamish before. I love my dog, but I don't love him enough to spend about £10 a month giving him his own Microsoft account. And I don't think he'd be pretty good at logging in every day either. So for now, everything has to be just kind of assigned to me. But you can actually assign things based by either name, based on email, or literally just whoever's in your organization. You can just quickly just click on the drop down menu of an assignment and then choose, just type it in, and it'll automatically bring them up from there. So if you wanted to have an aggregated action tracker and assign specific actions, say, let's say, I don't know, to a supervisor of a department, be it engineering, facilities, whatever, you can do that here. And then on Microsoft To Do, it will come up on their own personal to-do list. So that will be unique to them relative to what's assigned to them. Now, I'm not going to refresh that because it's going to bring up a couple of other actions as part of that. But what you will see is that all of these actions that have previously been on there are there. They're there. And at a very quick glance, it can tell you what's overdue for your own actions, what's due today, what's due in the future, what's due a little later on in the future as well. Now, bearing in mind, all we've done at this point is we've started with one form for one health and safety event, and we've managed to go through Excel integration, aggregated action tracking, individual action tracking, links to a dedicated location of where that event is. Sounds pretty good, right? Literally all within Microsoft. But what about the audit trail? What about the digital fingerprint? What about if I've got 45,001 and all of my individual health and safety events are in non-conformance? Where can I just track these? I might get hundreds of these come through a day. This is going to be a bit of a faff to keep track of. So what you can also do as part of this, if you bear with me 1 second, is you can save every single one of the emails that has come through to you as an individual file in Microsoft, in Teams, in SharePoint, in a location that you choose. So if I expand that a little bit, you'll see that that's a dedicated time-stamped event of that particular email saved as an email. Now, I'm not going to bring up one of these emails because it's going to bring up someone's email address. But what I will do is show you, this is one that I clicked up, oh, apologies, clicked on earlier, and this is the event. That's it. It's a dedicated bit. Now, I could try and tell you this is just something that's kind of I prepared earlier, but you can actually test yourself. So if you've filled in that form and you've got an email, you'll see that there's a number at the bottom and it'll say how many other responses have happened. So you can check your own email and you can quickly see, is Pete absolutely telling porky pies here, or is that number different? And I'd be willing to bet my bottom dollar that it's different unless you are the one person that has got 134, because I deleted about 6 before I started this. So you might actually have 134 again. But chances are is that your number is going to be different. And chances are is that if you responded to the form using the email address that you signed up to this particular session with, where it's got, this is a test form of the email info to see what comes up, you'll see that there's probably a personalized message in there to you, potentially, if you signed up using the exact same email address, except for you, Sam, because I forgot what your email address was and forgot to put it in. So apologies for that. But again, if you're thinking to yourself, hang on a sec, Pete, I've just filled that form in. How the hell did you manage to write a personalized section to me that's different from the one that I've just shown you there? And that's where the magic of Excel comes in, because we can actually do a lot of kind of back end stuff by linking it to Excel and then putting that at a certain point in that Microsoft Flow process to tell us extra information and to do a couple of other bits and pieces, which I could get into right now, but we'd probably use the rest of the time just quickly talking about Excel. So when we're trying to say, right, okay, well, what are the benefits of using Microsoft? Where does all of this stuff come in? I mean, we can save a lot of time from admin to start with straight away. I mean, I hope you can kind of see that straight away. Literally, we've got loads of stuff that's automatically saved in a single location. I mean, just as a quick thing on the emails as well, if you've set up your form so that you attach elements to it, be that pictures, videos, PDFs, whatever you want it to be, when you set it up to save that email in a dedicated folder location, it will save the attachments in there as well. So if you, like me, want to set up your health and safety events, your accidents, your non-conformances as befores, and use attachments as pictures in there to say, actually, yeah, this is a dedicated before, you've got the perfect record. And it's always going to be there, and it's always going to be particularly in that document and in that folder. And if you're concerned about, for example, people changing file names, changing the folder, doing anything like that, you've probably guessed it, you can set up a particular flow that will tell you if someone modifies it, or if someone particularly tries to change a file in it, and what they've changed it to, when they've done it, and what they've done with it. So again, the ability to do digital footprints behind this is fantastic. There's a lot of information that we've just gone through there, a lot of information as part of that. And I know that there's a lot that we've kind of just covered, bearing in mind that we've pretty much just started on a single form. So at this point, does anyone have any questions that I can kind of talk through?
Just an observation for me, Peter. Great
it.
work. I'll just echo what you're showing people there is really good and better than some of the software solutions that are out there on the market at the moment, because what you're doing there is a lot quicker, a lot easier, and yeah, great work. All I'd say is crack on with the rest of this, really, because I'm enjoying some of it. The teams aspect, I didn't think of the teams aspect actually, which I thought was a really nice point there. What I would say, just digressing from this a little bit, is if you put it out there on software, say online, whether it's YouTube or whatever, let me know so that I can send out to my teams as well. Because I think a lot of the people that aren't health and safety people, like a lot of the functional directors and stuff like that, would really benefit from seeing this.
I couldn't agree more, Robert. And thank you so much. That's incredibly kind of you to say. The benefits that we start to have with this are huge for the departments as well. I mean, this isn't just a safety thing, but without wanting to get too much into what Simple Foundry do, we're not just sort of health and safety type of things. Because if it's one thing that I've done through my career, being in various sort of senior leadership team positions, executive leadership team positions, it's been able to say, right, well, actually, this can help you in so many different ways across your businesses, in so many other options and so many other avenues. For example, I was helping out a consultancy recently create an automated lead form that would just integrate with Microsoft Planner and Microsoft To Do. Literally just go to an event, fill in a lead form, and then it literally does everything that you've just seen here. I mean, that has nothing to do with safety, but it follows the exact same process. And again, it's all Microsoft. If you've got access to Microsoft kind of as a business account, chances are is that you can already do all of this stuff already. Go for it, Maz. Yeah, please.
Yeah. Have you seen any companies use SharePoint to create a intranet for health and safety?
Yes, I have, and it can work really well. But the challenge that we tend to see is less about the effectiveness of Microsoft SharePoint and more about the general digital literacy of the staff that are using it. SharePoint itself is a wonderful tool. It really is. I mean, when we look at Microsoft Teams, for example, Microsoft Teams is kind of like a visual front end of SharePoint. So if I were to tick on, let's go back to this one for a second, there's an option to open it in SharePoint. And that will literally just open up a browser and it will go into SharePoint and it will show me this folder in SharePoint. So for all intents and purposes, when you're using Teams, you're pretty much using SharePoint, but it just looks a bit different. it's a kind of a reductive way of describing it, but actually for the vast majority of people, this is what they're used to. So in answer to your question, yes, Maz, yeah, SharePoint 100% can be used as a bit of an intranet, but actually we can use Teams in the same way. So if I click on this tab here for a second, I've literally got all of those actions that I showed you just before on Microsoft Planner. As part of that, if I click on a tab here and decide that I want to go to Microsoft Lists, save that there. Chances are is that it's not decided to work in the same way, which is a bit disappointing. So apologies for that. But in theory, what should have happened there, if my internet wasn't being a little bit daft, was that it would have just added a tab and then you could literally add something there. Let's try a simple one with Microsoft Forms. Add an existing forms, and let's just look at that safety event form there.
Have we lost him?
I think he just fell off the
Okay.
fell off the call.
Right, just while we're waiting for Peter to come back.
There
Here
he
he is.
I lay him in.
Fantastic. So for those of you who weren't at the start of this this particular session, let me give you a little bit of an update. So my internet today decided to conk out at roughly about 10 to 6. So I've been hotspotting off my phone, and I think it probably hit its limit right at 23 people, and we're trying to do some really complex bits and pieces there. So apologies for that. That is literally just down to my shoddy internet rather than anything else. So what I will say is that, again, SharePoint itself, yes, you can have an amazing internet, but actually when your internet works effectively and it isn't unfortunately a bit dodgy like mine is this evening, yes, you can do a huge amount actually through Microsoft Teams and achieve actually quite a lot of the interface elements that you would want to achieve through SharePoint, but just through Microsoft Teams instead. Gotcha. Okay, so let me quickly just jump back into this for a second. Right, perfect. Okay, so we've gone through the form at this point. We've talked through the automation process. You've seen an email that you've had through that is a kind of like a custom approach that you can have that's personalized to specific individuals. We've talked through the kind of inputs from Microsoft Forms and what you can do with Planner, what you can do with To Do, what you can do with Excel, what you can do with lists. There's been some amazing questions there on how we can integrate it with SharePoint, comparing it to other bits of software. Are there any other questions anyone has at this moment in time?
Peter,
Go for it, Faye.
Past, in the past, I've used SharePoint more than Teams to kind of build things in like either document receptacles or kind of like an intranet sort of thing. So I'm probably more okay with SharePoint than I am with Teams. With Teams, it's kind of, for me, I see it as more of a chat function, or with their channels and things like that, of being able to move things around between people. But not that great with using it further than that. But with the team side, could you do the same as like you can with the SharePoint side? So with the SharePoint side, I've in the past made like intranet things with heroes. So you put a hero on the front of it, so you've got a nice little funky little picture, and then you click on the picture to go through to the form or whatever it is. Can you do the same on Teams?
Kind of. I'm going to
rather than it being a list, because a list is,
I totally get you. Let me quickly stop sharing my screen for a second so I can just quickly change one bit to this. Right, okay. Grand. Can you all see my screen again as part of that? Perfect. So you're absolutely right, Faye. Yes, there is kind of the post section of Microsoft Teams that has kind of that style of kind of effect to it. But what I will say is that it depends on how you want to set it up. So these tabs at the top here, What you can do with these tabs, so you'll have seen, for example, now that lists is on there, you've got kind of a list option where you can add lists to it. You've got kind of the form itself that you can just integrate as a tab at the top. But what you can also do is put like the front page of a SharePoint as one of these tabs as well. And then you can just literally just rearrange kind of these. I'm reluctant to try and drag things about too much in case my internet conks out a little bit. But if you still wanted to keep a kind of a front page hub, all you'd potentially need to do at that point is just create a tab, call it hub, link it to the front page of your SharePoint, and then just literally say, cool, you want to see about the forms, you want to kind of use it from there, click on hub and just click into it. And it will just basically do it as like an enclosed browser in that particular part of Teams. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, that does make sense.
So everything's still kind of linked together as part of that, and you don't have to sacrifice what you do on SharePoint just because you're using Teams. For me, what I've found from kind of a device point of view is that Teams is a little bit less of a barrier to entry for people because it's kind of just a little easier to use than SharePoint. It kind of tends to be a bit more responsive on a mobile device or on a tablet than SharePoint traditionally can be. So actually having that nice middle ground between the two actually can work really well. It actually worked really well. So I hope, does that answer kind of the question on that for you a bit?
Yeah, it does. Cheers. Thank you.
Perfect. And just as a quick thing on that device, so I'll come to you in a second, Sam, as a quick thing on that device as well. I know before we kind of said, okay, well, you've got a QR code, and I know a few of you had kind of used your phones and scanned that on the QR code to get access to it and fill it in that way. Again, one thing that I have done for some of the sites is when I've set them up with their own individual channels, I've then put specific kind of form bits in the tabs at the top. So when they go onto Microsoft Teams, they're not necessarily having to hunt through a lot of button presses to get to what they want to do. They literally click on Teams on their phone, click on their channel with the site name on, click on the tab at the top, and they're there. And it's just done. And actually what we find is that I was saying before about digital literacy, it's less about teaching people about safety processes that are digital, and more about teaching them around pattern recognition. And actually, they do the same thing when they go in and they log in on Facebook and put a post up, or go onto Marketplace on Facebook, click on a link, and then they're there. It's the exact same process. You're just kind of repeating it for Teams. And describing it in that way and engaging with them on a digital literacy point of view by comparing patterns of learning to patterns of learning, it makes it so much more accessible. Sam, go ahead.
Thanks, mate. I may be jumping the gun a little bit, so I do apologise if you're going to come onto this at any point. How does using Microsoft fit into the wonderful world of GDPR? Because I appreciate you're probably going to use it to pull through some fairly sensitive data and information, and that's typically one of the first questions people will ask. Does it sort of align to all the boxes that you have to tick, if you like, from that perspective?
Yes, it does. But I'm going to say that there's more of an onus on you setting it up in the right way in the first place. So, for example, I'll give you a very simple one, which is you've all seen Microsoft Forms. If you've set up a Microsoft form and you haven't moved that form into a group that is private or protected, you are holding people's personal information in a personal digital sort of like Microsoft account. That can pose some really significant challenges for you if it comes down to GDPR, data processing and data handling. So I've been through that exact same process, Sam, and there's more to it than that. But what I would say is, if you have any questions about GDPR, give me a shout at the end. I'll explain to you what I went through, the challenges that I kind of came across as part of it, how I resolved them, and then made sure that it was GDPR compliant. We didn't have anything that came up that needed to go to the ICO, but what I will say is that it was a nerve-wracking moment when you realize that how you set things up isn't necessarily in line with what you would expect it to be. So, amazing question. You're absolutely right. It's not insurmountable in any way. You just need to make sure that you've got everything directing to the right location that is private, and that's it. And that's easily done, to be honest with you. But again, it's give me a shout at the end, and I'll gladly take you through that. Cool. Perfect. So I'm very conscious of time as part of stuff. I know we've kind of only got about 17 minutes left or so, so I'm going to kind of just work through a couple of other bits and pieces as part of this. But these are some amazing questions. I can see that the chat's been going on as well, which is really good. So I know we've kind of talked through how we can use this particular example. As I say, we've only looked at a single health and safety event, but what else can we use it for? I want to stress what I'm about to kind of take you through now isn't exhaustive in any capacity. It is just to try and sort of get the mind going a little bit. But ultimately, from audits through to management system designs, project management, contractor support, insurance claims or support initiatives, fire activities, document control and change logs, gosh, you name it, there's going to be a way that you can digitize it using Microsoft. There really is. And this is stuff that I've spent literally years of my life integrating in together. And once you get started, oh, geez, it literally, the sky's the limit. And it's so exciting. It is so exciting being able just to make a system that just works. My pet hate in life is something that should work that just doesn't. So finding a bespoke solution that I know can work every time and I can go in and double check it every single time it runs, amazing. It's just given me so much more confidence that I control my data, I control the processes, and that I understand exactly what's happening at any stage, because it's quite simple. And at the end of the day, if it really hits the fan, just call Microsoft. Just call Microsoft. Because they're literally, as a global business, there to make sure that whatever automation you've got behind it works. So again, from my point of view, Microsoft is such a wonderful platform to be able to do so much in safety. You'll, for those of again who are eagle-eyed in the viewers here, you'll see that this actually goes A to R rather than A to Z. And quite frankly, that's literally because I just ran out of space on the page. So if you trust me when I tell you, from the A to Z of safety topic areas, you can do stuff with Microsoft. You can, even though this one just says A to R. I know that we've kind of talked through a little bit about kind of what we can do just there, but genuinely, give us a shout if you'd like us to go through this with you. That's as simple as I can kind of say for now. From my own experience of being SHE advisor to then moving through to SHE manager, group health and safety manager, and then finally to head of safety before consultancy, the opportunities at every single level are terrific. I tend to follow a structure of objective, strategy, tactics, task when it comes down to making change in a business and delivering change. And at every single stage, you can integrate Microsoft into it. It's kind of wonderful.
Peter, we just had a question in the chat.
Oh, sorry.
Someone
Yes,
said,
yeah.
Can we use all of this through personal Microsoft 365 subscriptions? Because a lot of us obviously belong to an organization, but
so that's a great question. Basically, there's several different versions of kind of like Microsoft that you can have. For example, the one that I'm running this off today is a business standard account. A business standard account is pretty much the same one that every standard employee will get when they go into a business. When I was setting everything up from SHE advisor, SHE manager, group health and safety manager, I just had the standard Microsoft 365 business account one. It's like the one that costs about, I think it's currently on at about £9.50 a month, basically. But that's kind of the one that I've been using as part of it. When you've got a free Microsoft account, you can get access to Power Automate free, but it depends on how you've set things up, basically when you've signed up and kind of what you've signed up for in your personal account. So the short answer is maybe. The slightly longer answer is, if you work in a business that has given you a Microsoft account, chances are is that you've got access to all of this already. So apologies that I can't be kind of more specific with that, but I do hope that kind of answers that question. Thanks, Faith. I appreciate you raising that up as part of it. So coming into sort of the back end of stuff here, I'm going to say something that's going to be a little bit controversial for a second. Microsoft is great, but it is not the be all and end all, and it should not be the be all and end all of a solution for a health and safety function or for a business or for a consultancy to be offering. It's amazing. It's wonderful. I love it. I'm a little biased. But fundamentally, when we look at resilience in a system and we look at in terms of sort of long-term engagement and wider support, third-party software can have it beat. Might not have it beat on price, but it can have it beat in terms of some of the wider areas. So when it comes down to thinking about, well, what do we actually need to look at then in health and safety software? I'm going to ask for a small favor, and in return, I'm going to give you something. So at the end of this session, I've got a feedback form, and it's just literally to let me know how you found it today, what kind of you thought went well, what you might like to see a little bit differently in a future session. But if you fill that in, I've got a cheat sheet of 14 different areas that you can ask when it comes down to looking for health and safety software. Now, this is something that I've used previously in numerous different businesses and have basically built on over the last 6 years that really covers 14 different key areas that you might want to ask when it comes down to tender. So Robert, in particular, I'm very sorry that you didn't manage to get this before. I appreciate you said you've just gone out to tender as part of this, but there might be potentially a couple of questions in there that you could follow up with as well if you saw a couple of things that you might not have otherwise have picked up. But generally speaking, if you wouldn't mind giving me some feedback at the end, you'll get this wonderful cheat sheet in comparison. Quite possibly so, Robert, quite possibly so. But you never know, you might have hit everything as part of that already. You never know, you could well have done, So in summary then, before we kind of get into another question opportunity, what have we done? We've worked through Microsoft Forms with a dedicated example. You've seen how it can be used for nearly any health and safety process. I mean, don't get me wrong, we didn't even get started on how you could even use it for contract and multiple choice questionnaires. If, for example, you're in construction, could you use it as a bolt-on for a PQQ? If you wanted, for example, to do some validation of a toolbox talk or health and safety training, what could you do with it? We haven't even touched on that just yet. But you can pretty much do any paper-based form in Microsoft Forms from a digitization point of view. We've gone through Power Automate. You've seen how you can have your own personal health and safety administrator working 24/7, doing loads of different stuff without you having to engage with it all the time. Set it, forget it. It works in the background. It just does. And once you've set it up for the first time, all you need to do is just check in every now and again to see if it's still going. If it doesn't work for whatever reason, you'll get an automatic email that will say, hey, this particular process has failed. This is where, this is why, here's what you can do about it. We've gone through Microsoft 365 with a few examples. We've talked through Teams. We've gone through Outlook. We've gone through Excel. From a Word point of view, not necessarily touched upon that too much just yet. But what I will say is that where you saw that form process going into an email, you can actually, with a little bit of coding, put that into a Word document and save it as a Word document instead. It takes a little bit more effort, but you can do that if you want to. We've talked through Microsoft Planner and To Do, your aggregated action management solution and your personal action management solution that you can see at a glance how everything's going. Because one thing that I didn't show you as part of Microsoft Planner is in the hub. So from the hub, you can see everything here. If I click into the client showcase and go to charts, you can see very quickly that Peter Jenkins, unfortunately, has 23 late actions. When I see him, I'll give him a piece of my mind and tell him he needs to get on that straight away. But if you're bearing in mind, you're a functional leader, you've got an entire team, you've got multiple sites, just look at the charts and it'll tell you straight away who's overdue, when are they overdue, what's happening in which buckets at what priority. Again, you don't need to do any extra behind the scenes stuff. It's just done for you straight away. And as I say, we've talked through that to-do list as well. So although, yes, everything's coming to me, if you've got people in your business that you've assigned it to, it works well for them as well. Now, I did see in the chat a little earlier on a bit about Power BI. As part of this session, we've kind of run out of time to be able to go through this in more detail, but there's something called Power BI, which is effectively everything you can do in Excel from that visualizations piece that I showed you before. So that'd be in this worksheet here. Imagine this, but basically in the cloud. And as part of that, you can set it to send automatic PDF reports every week, every day, every hour, if you wanted to, built exactly like you want it to be built, specifically for certain tiers of people in your business, or even just certain people in your business. Again, all automatic, but we haven't touched upon that as part of this session. AI Builder. Now, AI is all the rage at the moment. Don't get me wrong. As a small example of something that I've done with AI Builder recently, I was working with a large multinational construction company, and they wanted to do a contractor survey for up to 7,000 people. as part of that, we said, right, well, we can do the standard, let's rate it kind of 1 to 5, 1 not very good, 5 very good. But actually, what about open text questions? So as part of this, we used an AI builder function in Microsoft to give thematic sentiment analysis of 3 open text questions that would tell us if it was positive, neutral, or negative sentiment, and at what percentage of each. So when we're combining that with something like Net Promoter Score, we can say, hey, you've got 500 contractors here that are roughly positive net promoters, but actually only 50% of those have said something positive in an open text question. So when it comes down to you saying, right, how can we make sure that we have real, proper champions that will speak very highly about safety at every opportunity, we can start to integrate other metrics and start to integrate really strong metrics using AI. And again, we're only just getting started at that. That's just one example recently. Power Apps, I'm not going to go into too much detail with, but if you imagine that you wanted to create a customized app and then use that on a phone instead of Microsoft Forms, you've got the opportunity to build that through Microsoft as well. And so much more, so much more. We're literally barely even getting started. And as I said to you, if you've got that business standard account, chances are you've already got access to all of this stuff. All for free. Well, for free. Technically you're paying £9 odd a month, but you've got it. It's there. And it's just ready and waiting for what you want to do. So at this point, I just want to say thank you genuinely so much for the time that you've given me today, for the questions that you've asked so far, the engaging chats that I've seen come through. Absolutely fantastic. There's a QR code there for the form at the end, but I'm going to put that QR code in the chat at the same time. So bear with me 1 second. I'll click into this, responses, copy that. There you go. And now you've just seen just how quickly it is to share a form. So if you wouldn't mind, just give me a bit of feedback. As I say, if you do fill that feedback form in and add an email address to it, I'll send across a copy of that health and safety software suppliers requirements cheat sheet. And while you're doing that, I'd just like to open up the floor to any questions anyone has that's still going on. What are your thoughts? Yeah, Maz, go for it. Oh, you're just on mute. Happens to the best of us.
Standard, yeah. Okay, so this has been a really good session. Where do we go from here, Peter? Are you holding further training, paid training courses? What's the plan? How can you help us?
That's a great question. So if you're filling in that form as part of it, you'll see at the bottom that there's a couple of options for what you'd like to hear about. So if, for example, you'd like to hear about business process mapping. So for example, if you're a consultant and you're thinking, oh my God, Pete, this sounds amazing. How can I how can I do this? And how can I sell this to my clients? Tick that box. If you're looking, for example, how we can directly support you individually with digitizing your own systems, click the next box for consultancy. If you're looking for training on how, for example, I can train you on a one-to-one or train your teams, train your functions on how to do what I've shown you today and more, click the training box. I will be running some focus groups that will just help me understand a bit more about what people would like. So if you'd like to be a part of that, do tick that. And then in terms of events and activities, I would love, honestly, Maz, I'd love to have like a physical get together for this type of stuff. This has got kind of like hackathon stuff written all over it for how we could work together on a solution. It's amazing. But realistically, to start with, temper my expectations a little bit. Virtual sessions going through similar things or more in kind of like deep dive type of stuff is well on the cards. So if you're interested in that, click events and activities. And as I say, if you want to get that cheat sheet as well, click yes, and then pop the email address in the question underneath, and we'll go from there. Perfect. Thank you. Any other questions from anyone that I can answer?
I think that's it, Peter, by the looks of it.
Yeah, smashing. Well, I mean, as I say, I'll kind of will still sort of be here for the next sort of few minutes, obviously, while things are going through. But I really just do want to say thank you genuinely, sincerely, so much for everyone that's come and engaged with this. As you can probably tell, I'm deeply passionate about doing things with Microsoft. It has changed my career, literally the entire trajectory of my career, so much for the better through going through the skills and experiences associated with this, as well as being able to make such an impact to the frontline staff, the functions, the management, and the overall safety performance of the businesses that I've been a part of without having to sign up to some just ridiculous 6-figure fees for some health and safety software. So I really do hope that it's shown you what you can achieve, what you can kind of work with, and ultimately just what opportunities exist with what you're already paying for, because it's amazing. It's so good. It is so good.
Yeah, it's been probably one of the most useful Safety 7 sessions we've had, actually, Peter. For me personally, I feel like I've tried out that many systems. I've worked with lots of different systems, which, you know, whatever the client buys, sometimes we have to work with. And yeah, we come across all manner of issues. We end up trying to do workarounds. There's glitches in the system. Yeah, lack of investment into software by some of the providers, software that gets released too early and they put it out there for sale, you name it. Myself and my colleagues, Vicky's on this call, we've come up against it. So this is a really good alternative to be utilising stuff we've all already got.
No, brilliant stuff. And again, if there's anyone that's kind of thinking, this looks great, but I'm not too sure where to start, basically, in being able to do this myself, drop me a message. You've got my email address at the bottom there, which is peter@simplefoundry.co.uk. If you've got me on LinkedIn, you can drop me a message there. But genuinely, I'd just love to help. Like I literally live for this stuff. It is genuinely something that I'm so passionate about, and it'd be a real pleasure to help bring what you want to achieve to life through what you've seen here today and more. Genuinely would.
Great. Okay, well, it's 7 o'clock, Peter. Thank you so much for doing this presentation for us.
Oh, thank you.
And yeah, we hope to have you back very, very shortly, no doubt.
Cheers. Brilliant. No, thank you very much, everyone. Very much appreciated.
Okay, thanks for joining. Oh, we've got a hand up by Vicky. No.
That was accidental, sorry.
It's all right.
Okay. Yeah, thanks all for attending, and we'll see you probably in the new year now for our next session.
Wonderful.
Okay.
Perfect.
Thanks, everyone. Take care.
Well, thanks.
Bye.